All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started on homework number 6. And the name for homework number 6 is vertical change. All right. So, number 1, it asks me to write an equation of each line using point slope form. So number 1, it says point slope form. And I'm looking at this, and I remember from last week, it's not to be confused with slope intercept form. That's entirely different. Slope intercept form from last week, if you remember correctly, is y equals mx plus b. Okay, we did that last week. This week, we're moving on and learning point slope form, which is different. So doesn't mean you forget slope intercept form. We're going to use that and actually use something called standard form as well in this lesson. And that is y minus y1 is equal to m times the quantity of x minus x1. Okay? And that's going to be called point slope form. Now, you might look at that and just think, all right, I'm already confused. I don't know what that means. That looks hard. It's not. And I'll explain why here in a second. All right, so that's point slope form. Notice a slope intercept form is called slope intercept form because we have an m, which is my slope, and we have an intercept, which is my y-intercept. All right, that's why it's called slope intercept form. So point slope form, we're given or have to find the slope and then also given a point. So we would use point slope form when we're given a point and we know the slope. So in this case, they tell us the slope. They say the slope for number 1 is equal to 3. And then it says the point that the line goes through is 1, 5. So I'm going to write an equation of a line that goes through this 1, 5 point but has a slope of 3. And remember, another way of writing slope is by writing the letter m, and then saying m is equal to 3. So I have an m right here, so I'm just going to substitute that in. Y minus, well, what's y1? Think of this as x1, and think of this as y1, because I don't have an x2 or a y2. That's my x1 and that's my y1. Simple enough. So I'm going to substitute in each of these values into the point slope form. So y1 is 5, right? Is equal to, the slope is 3 times the quantity of x minus, what's x1? 1. Now, don't stop here. This is not simplified. If you give me this, I'm not going to accept it because I want it actually to be simplified. The way you would do that is continue. What's 3 times x using distributive property, and 3 times negative 1. 3 times x is 3x. 3 times negative 1 is negative 3. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and add 5 to each side. And I get y is equal to 3x plus 2. All right, now that I'm here, I can circle it and say, hey, I'm done. Because this, what you had here, that's right so far, but you have to simplify. Okay, you have to simplify it down. So y is equal to 3x plus 2. Now, how can you check your work? Some of you are very good at checking your work and go back and make sure it's right. How can I check to make sure this is right? All right, so I would start substituting in any point. So I have 1, 5 here. Y is equal to 3x plus 2. Let's substitute in 1, 5 from right here, right? So let me substitute in 3 times 1 is 3 plus 2 is 5. Is 5 equal to 5? Yes. So I know that this answer, y equals 3x plus 2, is a line that has a slope of 3 and goes through 0.15. All right, number 2. Number 2 gives you a slope of 5, and it goes through 0.02. All right. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and rewrite my point slope form. Y minus y1 is equal to m times the quantity of x minus x1. All right. And substitute in, remember slope is the same as m, so m is equal to 5. Y minus y1, this is my x1, this is my y1, so y1 is 2, is equal to slope, which is m, is equal to 5, x minus x1, which was 0. All right, so now, like before, I'm just going to bring this down, set it equal to 5 times x, which is 5x, 5 times negative 0, that's 0. So I'm not even going to write anything. I could write like plus 0 there, but there's no point to it. All right, and then I'm going to go ahead and add 2 to each side. You get y by itself, and I get y is equal to 5x plus 2. Once again, if you get this far and you don't actually simplify it, you need to. And you get your answer. All right, so now that we've gotten this far, I'm going to go ahead here and check my work. Check your work. All right, and I'm going to get, let's see, I'm going to put my original equation in here. Y is equal to 5x plus 2, and I can substitute in 0 for x and 2 for y to see if that works. 5 times 0 is 0, plus 2 is 2. Is 2 equal to 2? Yes, it is. So this equation down here, I know is correct. All right, moving on. Number 3. Okay, number 3, my slope is 0. And it passes through 0.4, negative 2. So y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. All right, y minus, this is x1, this is y1, minus negative 2 is equal to, my slope is 0. So all of this over here is going to end up being 0, right? Because 0 times anything is 0. All right, so what I'm going to get here, this whole right side over here is all going to be 0. So y minus negative 2 is equal to 0. 0 times x is 0. 0 times negative 4 is 0. And then you're going to subtract a negative, same as adding a positive. So y plus 2 is equal to 0. I'm going to get y by itself here. So I'm going to subtract 2. And I'm going to say y is equal to negative 2. All right, and that's number 3. There's no slope. 0 in front of x, like if you were to write y is equal to 0x minus 2, 0 times anything is 0, so there's no point of even including that. You don't need to do that. Just say y is equal to negative 2. All right, moving on, negative. Number 4. Negative 4, yeah. So problem number 4 says, using point slope form, write an equation of the line through each pair of points. Now this is going to require 2 steps, okay? The first step of what we're going to want to do is we're going to have to find slope first, okay? The second step is then we're going to have to do the point slope form. Okay, so really 2 steps. Maybe I'll create like a little checklist for me, right? So it gives me 2 points. Remember in the last lesson, we talked about how to find slope, right? Whenever we have 2 points, we're going to start combining these concepts and lessons we've learned together, where it all starts to formulate and make sense. So remember, this is my x1 and this is my y1. This is my x2 and this is my y2. And remember my equation for, slope, which also can be called m. My equation for that is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So I'm going to go ahead and substitute in these values here. And y2 is negative 5 minus 3 is x2, which is negative 2 minus negative 10. All right, so negative 5 minus 3 gives me a negative 8. And negative 2, subtract negative, that's adding a positive, so really that gives me 8. Negative 8 divided by 8 gives me negative 1. Okay, so my slope, after all this, my slope is equal to negative 1. Now, I went ahead and found the slope. I'll check that off my checklist. Now I have to use point slope form. So I get y minus y1 is equal to m times the quantity of x minus x1. All right, so now I have 2 points here. You know, I have this one right here, and then I have this one right here. You can really choose, and I'll write this down. Choose either point. Okay, so I could choose this one, or I could choose this one. I'm going to choose, even though it says x1 and y1, you can choose either one. I'm going to choose negative 2, negative 5. So I'll say like negative 2, negative 5. Now I have it chosen, all right? That's my x1 and that's my y1. Okay, don't get that confused. Just because up here you labeled it x2 and y2, that was just to find the slope. Now I've picked a point and I've just labeled it x1, y1. I could choose either one, it doesn't matter. I chose this one. So y minus y1, which was negative 5, is equal to m. Remember my slope was negative 1, right? Negative 1 times the quantity of x minus x1, which is negative 2. Okay, so when you subtract a negative, that's the same as adding a positive. Same here, adding a positive. So I get y plus 5 is equal to negative 1 times x plus 2. All right, and then if I want to go ahead and use a distributive property here, I would say negative 1x, which is negative x. Negative 1 times 2 is a negative 2. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get y by itself. Subtract 5 from each side. I'm going to get y is equal to negative x minus 7. Okay? And I'm going to go ahead and circle that. Now, if I want to check my work, check your work. Okay? I can go ahead and write this original equation in here. Y is equal to negative x minus 7. And I could use both points, negative 10, 3, or negative 2, negative 5. Substitute those values in, right? If I say negative 2, right? And I should get negative 5. Let's check. Negative 1 times negative 2 here, that gives me a positive 2. 2 minus 7 is negative 5. Right? So that's right. If I were to do the same with negative 10, right? Negative 10 should give me 3 in the end. A negative times negative 10 gives me a positive 10. 10 minus 7 is 3. So that's right as well. So I know that this equation is correct. Moving on to number 5. Number 5 gives me 7, 11, and 13, 17. Remember, in order to do this, we're going to have 2 steps, right? The first one was to find slope. And the second step was to do point slope form. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. Remember, the first step is to find slope. slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. All these equations you have to memorize. I don't think the slope one's too difficult because you've been doing that for several years now. But the slope-intercept and the point-slope form and standard form, which I'm about to talk about, I'll include that on the first test. Including this, I'll have a picture of it so that way you don't have to memorize it right away, but you will need to know it in the future as well. Okay, so start memorizing it now. So I'm gonna go ahead and label these. This is my x1, my y1, x2, y2. All right, so let's have 17 minus 11 over 13 minus 7. 17 minus 11 is 6. 13 minus 7 is 6. 6 divided by 6 is 1. So I know my slope is 1. All right, so I found my slope. Now, use point-slope form because I have a point and I have my slope. So I have y minus y1 is equal to m times the quantity of x minus x1. I can choose either point. I'm going to choose 7, 11, right? So 7, 11, that'll be my x1, that'll be my y1. Okay, could choose either. I chose that one. And I'm going to choose, let's go 11 here, minus my slope is 1, times the quantity of x minus, what's my x1, 7. Okay, so let's go ahead here. I'm going to bring this down. Y minus 11 is equal to, distribute the 1, so really I just get x minus 7. I'm going to go ahead and add 11 to each side. And I get y is equal to x plus 4. Okay? And that's what I should end up getting in the end. Let me substitute both values in just to make sure. Let me check my work. And I'll take the equation y is equal to x plus 4, substitute in 7 and 11. 7 plus 4 gives me 11. Awesome. And then let me try substitute in 13 and 17. 13 plus 4 gives me 17. So both of those are right. I checked my work, and this is the right answer. All right? All right, so number 6. Number 6 says, write an equation of each line in standard form with integer coefficients. Okay? So just to recap here, slope intercept form, remember, was y equals mx plus b. Okay? Point slope form was y minus y1 is equal to m times the quantity of x minus x1. And now, talk about standard form. And standard form is a times x plus b times y is equal to c. All right? And you can take an equation and make it look like it's in slope-intercept form, put it in slope-intercept form, and then you can change it to point-slope form, and you can change it to standard form. You can interchange between the three of these. So you might get an equation in standard form and be asked to put it in slope-intercept form, something you've actually already done. And you might have something in slope-intercept form asked to put it in standard form. And that's actually what we're about to do right now. So know that you can write, something in slope-intercept form. You could write, it could look like y is equal to 2x plus 3, right? And something in standard form would look something more like this. It'd be like negative 2x plus y is equal to 3, right? Or maybe even better example, if if you had something like 3x plus 7y is equal to 10, right? Just making something up. So in this case, notice that you have a number out in front. This would be A, this would be B, this would be C, and you still have your x and y. Okay, so we've explained what standard form is, but now it's asking for integer coefficients. What's an integer and what's a coefficient? This is a bit of a review, but an integer is a number with no decimal or no fraction. Okay, so integer examples could be like a -7 or -1 or 0 or 3, I don't know, 92. Like there's a lot of integers. There's no decimal, no fraction. If I were to say like 9.5 or like -7.329, these would not be integers, or even a fraction like 3/4, right? That's not an integer. And a coefficient is just a number out in front of a variable. So if I had like, I don't know, something like 3x, the 3 would be my coefficient, and the x would be my variable. So we're just putting names to things that we already know, right? We know what integers are. We know what coefficients are. So coefficients are just the number in front of the variable. Okay, so we're actually going to do number 6 on the next page here. Number 6 says y is equal to 1/2, which is really 0.5 minus 2. All right, so I want to put this in standard form. Remember, standard form was ax plus by is equal to c, which really means I need to take all this and move it over that way. And I do that by subtracting. So I'll say y is equal to 1/2 x minus 2. I'll subtract 1/2 x from each side, and I'll get -1/2 x plus y is equal to -2. All right, now that I'm here, it says in standard form with integer coefficients. -1/2 is not an integer. That's a fraction. Okay, so I need to change that. So what I would do is I want to multiply everything. And to rewrite it, just to give myself some more space here, I'm just going to rewrite it below to show you what I'm about to do here. All right, I'm going to multiply everything by 2. And here's why. I want to get rid of this fraction down here, this 2. And if I multiply everything by 2 over 1, or just 2, that takes that out. So 2 times -1/2, right? That would just cancel those out. That would just give me a -1. So that would give me a -1x. Distribute it. Now distribute it over here. 2 times y, which gives me 2y. 2 times -2 gives me a -4. Okay? And now I can circle it. So I've taken an equation originally right here, this equation written in slope-intercept form, and I've been able to transform it into standard form. Okay? So the direction asked me to write an equation of each line in standard form with integer coefficients. These all have integer coefficients, really -1, right? That's what it would really look like. -x plus 2y is equal to -4. Awesome. Number 7. Y is equal to -7x minus 9. Now this is slope-intercept form. I want to turn it to standard form. Remember, standard form was ax plus by is equal to c. So I want to get this over to that side of the equation. The way I'm going to do that is I'm going to add, oops, not 8x. I'm going to add 7x to each side. So that gives me 7x plus y is equal to negative 9. All right, so now that I'm here, I have all integer coefficients, right? 7, 1, which is in front of the y there, and negative 9, right? So I'm good. That was a short one. Number 7, good to go. All right, moving forward, number 8. Number 8 says find the intercepts and graph each line. So it says the intercepts. Really what it's talking about, it's saying find the x intercept and find the y intercept. And I might be thinking, well, how do I actually do that? Well, we're going to do 2 steps again. The first one is to substitute 0 in for x. And the second step is substitute 0 in for y. Make a little checkbox there. All right, so I have my equation. It looks like it's in standard form, right? X minus 4y is equal to negative 4. All right, so first step, I want to find my intercepts. Okay, so how do I find intercepts? What are my steps? All right, I like lists. My first step, substitute 0 in for x. So that's easy. I'll substitute in 0 minus 4y is equal to negative 4. 0 minus 4y, that gives me negative 4y is equal to negative 4. Divide each side by negative 4. And I get y is equal to 1. Easy enough, right? So remember, this was x. So my intercept, I originally had a 0 there, and my y value was 1. Right? So I could have said like x is equal to 0, y is equal to 1, and I'm able to put that in a point, which reads 0, 1. All right, so I found my x-intercept, okay? Or sorry, that's my y-intercept, because that's where it intercepts the y. X will always be 0 there. And you'll see in a second what I mean by that. All right, so we did that. And now let's move on. Let's rewrite the equation. X minus 4y is equal to negative 4. Next thing I want to do is substitute in 0 for x. Or sorry, 0 for y. So x minus 4 times y, which is 0 here. Negative 4. Negative 4 times 0 is 0. So x, I don't know, plus 0 is equal to negative 4. That gives you x is equal to negative 4. So remember, the y value was 0, and x is equal to negative 4. So my point here would be negative 4, 0. All right, so I guess maybe the third step in here would be to graph, only because this problem asks me to graph. So I'm going to draw my y-axis, my x-axis, make sure to include arrows on each side, label, this is my y-axis down here, this is my x-axis. All right, so my 2 points were 0, 1. Notice that's where it crosses the y-intercept. So I'll say 0, 1. Then I had negative 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, negative 4, 0. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and draw the line that connects it. And my equation for that line, I'm just going to write it in standard form like we had it. X minus 4y is equal to negative 4. Okay? So I've went ahead and graphed it. So I've completed number 8. A lot of steps, but I got there. Number 9. As we go through the school year, these problems are going to get longer, take more time to do, but you'll have less problems eventually as well, where I understand it's going to take a longer time to do the problems because there's more steps. Okay, so number 9, negative 3x plus 2y is equal to 6. All right, so remember my steps. My first one, set x is equal to 0. My second one was to set y equal to 0. And my third one was to graph. I'll create my little checklist here. All right, so first one, I'm going to substitute 0 in for x. Negative 3 times 0 is 0. That gives me 2y is equal to 6. Divide each side by 2, and I get y is equal to 3. Remember, that's when x was equal to 0, so my point was 0, 3. I'm going to rewrite my equation again, the original one I started with, and I'm going to substitute in 0 for y. Okay, and I get 2 times 0, which is 0, so that gives me negative 3x is equal to 6. Divide each side by negative 3, and I get x is equal to negative 2. Okay, even though x is equal to negative 2, my y was equal to 0, so my point is negative 2, 0. Go ahead and graph it. Okay, this is my y, this is my x. Okay, and my 2 points were 0, 1, 2, 3, and negative 2, 0, 1, 2. So 0, 3, and then this one over here was negative 2, 0. Draw a line. Whoops, that's not a good line. Line that goes through these 2 points. And the equation for the line was negative 3x plus 2y is equal to 6. All right, so I set x equal to 0, I set y is equal to 0, and then I graphed it. Those are my 3 steps. All right, moving on. I'm going to go ahead and create a new page. Number 10, only a few more. Okay. It says, write the equation of the line through each point. Use slope-intercept form. Okay, awesome. So I know slope-intercept form is y is equal to mx plus b. I'm just writing what I know. And what they've given me is a point, 1, negative 3. And they said this line was going to be parallel, keyword parallel, to, and then it gives me this equation, y is equal to 6x minus 2. Now, once again, this keyword parallel. A line parallel to this equation right here has the same slope, and my slope is 6x. So examples of lines that are parallel to this right here, lines that are parallel would be like y is equal to 6x plus 7, or y is equal to 6x plus 92, y is equal to 6x minus 7. As long as they have that 6 in front of the x right there, that means it's parallel. So you could say y is equal to 6x and then anything, right? This line is going to be parallel. So if I know that the line's parallel as long as it has 6 as the slope, well, I know that my m is going to be 6, plain and simple. So I'm going to start off here, y is equal to 6x, and then I need to finish this off. What do I do? So I'm going to take my equation y is equal to mx plus b. I know what m is equal to now, and I'm going to use my point that I had originally, 1, negative 3, right? This is my x value, this is my y value, and I'm going to substitute in these values. So I'm going to say negative 3 is equal to 6 times 1 plus b. This is how I find what b is to answer this bit right here. Okay, so 6 times 1 is 6, equals negative 3. Go ahead and subtract 6 from each side, and I get negative 9 is equal to b. I'll just flip it around that way to make it look like that. All right, so I know b is negative 9. So I know that my slope was 6. I know that my b is negative 9. So really, this problem, y is equal to 6x minus 9. So my answer at the very end would be y is equal to 6x minus 9. The way I could test this, the way you could check your work, is by writing the equation you came up with and substituting. Well, first I know it's parallel because y equals 6x minus 2 from up here, right? Has the same slope, so it's parallel. Awesome. Now I want to substitute in my original point, right? So I had negative 3 is equal to 6 times 1. Is that true? Let's try. 6 times 1 is 6 minus 9 is equal to negative 3. Negative 3 is equal to negative 3. Is that right? Yes. So I know that this is my answer. Okay, let's try this again. Number 11. All right, now number 11 gives you a 0.85. And once again, keyword perpendicular. A line that's perpendicular is different from being parallel. And it says perpendicular to y is equal to negative 4x plus 2. All right, so a line that's perpendicular. So what are steps to, before I even get there, what does it mean to be perpendicular? That means that if there's a line that's going like this, it would be crossing at a 90-degree angle. You guys learned about perpendicular lines in geometry last year, right? So lines that come across at a 90-degree angle. Well, how can you determine a line perpendicular to this? Well, it all starts with the slope again, the same way with parallel, how we dealt with slope in the previous example. So now we're going to look at this, say, all right, how do I take a slope and how do I make it look perpendicular? And the way you would do that is you would find the negative reciprocal. So how do you find the negative reciprocal of a number? So steps to find negative reciprocal of a number. So the first step would be to go ahead and write what you got here. So if I were to take a number, let's just say the number is 2, right? The first thing you would do is you would multiply it by a negative number. Multiply it by negative 1. So multiply by negative 1. 2 times negative 1 gives me a negative 2. Okay? Now, the second step of what I would do is I would turn it into a fraction. So turn into fraction. So I can say negative 2 over 1. That's a fraction. And the last thing I would do is I would flip it. So I'd take the negative 2, put it on the bottom, and just make it look like this. Okay, so this was step 1. This was step 2. And I should have just drew an arrow there, but I put an equal sign. That's step 3. So multiply by negative 1, turn into a fraction, and then flip it. So in our problem, right, we have y is equal to negative 4x plus 2. So I'm going to follow those same steps, right? So I start with negative 4. I'm going to multiply by negative 1, which gives me 4. I'm going to turn into a fraction, which is 4 over 1. And then I'm going to flip it, which gives me 1 over 4. Right? So I followed these 3 steps. Multiply by negative 1, I turned it to a fraction, and then I flipped it. So this number eventually became this. And that's how you would find the negative reciprocal. So I know starting off here, my slope is going to be 1/4. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to erase this. So that way I'm creating space, right? And we'll just continue this up here. So all this that we have going on. We know so far we have y is equal to 1/4 x plus b. And I want to find out what b is. The way I would do that is I would take my point that I have, 8,5 down here, and I'd move it up and say, all right, 8,5. So y is 5, 1/4 times 8 plus b. 8 divided by 4 is 2. Subtract 2 from each side, and I get 3 is equal to b. And now that I have b, I'm going to go ahead and substitute that into our original equation, what we have. And my answer will be y is equal to 1/4 x plus 3. Okay, and I could check it. I could plug that point back in if I were to substitute an 8 there and see if that gives me 5. It would, because 8 divided by 4 is 2. 2 plus 3 is 5. All right, and I know it's perpendicular to negative 4x plus 2 because I've went through and found the negative reciprocal and made that my slope. All right, just a few more here. Number 12. Number 12 gives you a bunch of points. It says, make a scatter plot and describe the correlation. All right, so I have 12. All right, and the points they give me are 0, 11, 2, 8, 3, 7, 7, 2, and 8, 0. So I'm going to make my scatter plot. And what I'm going to do is, since I know all of these points are positive, I'm going to draw my, not a straight line. There you go. I'm going to draw my coordinate plane like this, where this is my y value, my y-axis, this is my x-axis. You know, I could draw everything to the left on this side, everything to the right, but I'm not going to do that because I noticed all my values are positive, so I'm not going to need to do that. So let me go ahead and plot these points. I have 0, 11, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You know, I'm going to space these out a little bit more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. All right, and 0, 11, that's that point way up there. And I have 2, 8, so 1, 2, up 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Whoa, that is not good. There you go. 2, 8, and then 3, 7. So 1, 2, 3, and we'll go up 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Looks about good. And then I have 7, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, up 2. And my last one is 8, 0. All right, so these points are moving from left to right in more of a downward trend, right? And we see that. And on the homework document, you see that there are 5 different types of correlation listed. But right now, all I'm asking for you to do is tell me whether there is negative correlation or positive correlation. And the way you can tell that, like I said, moving left to right, is it moving downward or is it moving upward? Moving from left to right. And this is moving downward, so this is negative correlation. okay? This is moving negative direction. And I could go through and put my points in here. I noticed I didn't label things, so I could do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I could write them on the outsides like this. I could label my points, right? If I go back and say, all right, this was 0, 11. This one right here is 2, 8. This one is 3, 7, 7, 2, and 8, 0. And really what correlation is, correlation helps me develop, like look and see if there's a pattern, right? So is there correlation? Well, let me know if there's any patterns. What do you see? To me, it looks like that these are all trending downward. Okay, so this would be considered a negative correlation because it's moving downward. Number 13, I believe it's positive correlation just by looking at it. Oh, wow, that is a sweet feature.
Making a straight line.
Yeah, look at that. Guys, I had no idea that I could do that. My wife's over there laughing. That's pretty sweet. All right. I'm doing all this in an app called Procreate, and it's pretty cool, but I obviously have some things I need to learn. Look at that. I could have been drawing straight lines this whole time. I didn't even know that. All right, so this one right here says, the table shows a numbering system used in Europe and the United States for shoe sizes. And lists all these shoe sizes, and then in the US size as well as the European sizes. So we're going to go ahead and plot these, right? So maybe on the bottom we plot, let's just go to 12, right? We'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then on this side we'll go by 10. So we'll go 10, 20, 30, 40. Maybe I'll space them out a little bit more. Go 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50. Okay? So, if I just like label these on the outside, this will help give someone an idea of what I'm doing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, make sure these gaps are consistent. Like if you write like 1, 2, 7, 9, 50, like at least these are moving up by 1 each time, and these are up by 10. Please make sure those are consistent. All right, so the first one, 131. All right, I have 334. Um, 536. I have 739. I have 941. And then 1144. Now these look like they're moving in more of an upward trend, right? So this would be considered positive correlation. Remember, you're always looking at it from left to right. Okay, so each of my points, I guess I'll go back and label them as well. This is 131. This one is 334. This one is 536, 739, 941, and 1144. So that's comparing US sizes to European sizes. And that's number 13. All right, so for numbers 14 and 15, you're gonna have to use a TI-83 or TI-84 graphing calculator. I'm going to show you step by step how to solve each of these problems. And when I go through this, I want you to remember that calculators are your friend. They will help you out significantly, not only in Algebra 2, but throughout your math learning career. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and turn on my calculator. And I have a blanking cursor in the top left corner. So if you're looking at number 14 says write the equation of a trend line. It gives you 5 points. So what we're going to do is we're going to plot those 5 points on a coordinate plane and then use the calculator to determine a line of best fit, otherwise known as a trend line, that doesn't go through the points because the points aren't linear, the points are kind of scattered, but a line that shows maybe a prediction of where future points or other points could occur. Okay, so we're going to go ahead here and we're going to plot these points. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on Stat, and then it's highlighted over Edit, so I'm going to click Enter. And if for some reason you already have points in here, so let's say you have like 2 and a 3 here, and over here you have like a 9 and an 11. All right, let's say you have a bunch of points already in there. What you want to do is you want to go up to where it says L1, okay, and click on Clear, and then Enter. And it clears out all of your L1 values. And in this case, we're going to use L1. Those are going to be all of our X values. And the same with L2, clear out anything that's in there. So it should start off with a blank slate here. So you have L1 values and L2 values. And for all the L1 values, we'll enter our X values. So the first X value I have is -10. Then I have -5. Now notice something I did here. I clicked this button as a negative, which is different from the minus symbol. If I'm doing subtraction, I would click the minus symbol. If I want a negative number, I would click this. All right, so -10, -5, -1, enter. And then I have a +3, enter. And then after the +3, I have a +12, enter. All right, so I have all my X values in here. Click over here, and now I want to look at my L2 or my Y values. So I have 3. After 3, I have 1. I have -4, a -7, and a -12. All right, so these are my Y values. Now, I just want you to make sure all these line up, right? So make sure your points are -10, 3, -5, 1, -1, -4, 3, -7, and 12, -12. So now we have our points. I'm going to show you how to graph it here. What you would do is you would click where the Y equals button is in the top left corner, and you want to plot it by clicking up once. It should be if you have anything in any of these, clear that out. You don't need that. And then click up in the top left corner where it says plot 1, and then click enter. And now you see how it's like a solid slate over top, plot 1. If I were to click graph, it plots all of my points. Now you might get something that looks different. Like if you click zoom and then go to zoom 6, which is standard, you might see something that looks like that or something entirely different. The way that you would be able to zoom out to only see your points, in this case right here, there's only like 3.5 points it shows. If I want all 5, I would click zoom, and then you would scroll down till when you get to the 9, right? And click enter and zoom stat, and that allows you to see all of your points. Now that's great. You know, if I were to go through and look like each of these points, if I look all the way across the X, That would be 12, negative 12 down there in the very bottom left. Sorry, bottom right. But how would I actually create a line, my trend line? So what I want to do here is I want to click up. We'll click here where it says stat again, where I entered my points. Click to the right one where it says calc, and scroll down to where you get to linreg, which stands for linear regression. So this is how you would actually create your line. So the regression line, or y equals mx plus b. They wrote y equals ax plus b, so it's the same exact thing. Right, so if I click enter here, let it sit here for a second, and now actually click this vars button, which is short for variables. We're gonna put this into our y1, and we're gonna graph it. So I'm gonna click vars, click to the right once, and say, hey, we want this to be a function. So I'm gonna click enter, and then I want it stored in my y1, so I'll click enter again. Now, if you've gotten this far, it should say linreg ax plus b, and then have y1 next to it. If I click enter, it calculates it, and it gives me my equation. And I want to round like negative 0.71661. We'll just round to 2 decimal places. All right, so it will be negative 0.72, and then b would be negative 3.94. But check this out. Now, since I took that route, if I click y equals, it already stored that in my y equals for me to graph it. And then in the top right corner, if I click graph, it draws a line, my trend line. And notice it doesn't go through all the points, but it can predict future points or previous points that we don't already have. Okay? So it looks like a negative correlation. It's going down from left to right there. And whatever number we're looking at is going down. So now I have to write my equation. Well, if I ever want to go back, I would hit second and then quit here. So I could type in my equation is y equals negative 0.72 x plus negative 3.94. So it could be, instead of writing plus minus, you could just say minus 3.94. So once again, that's y equals negative 0.72 x minus 3.94. All right. So that was my first example. And now I'm just going to go ahead and clear this out. By clicking clear, I'm going to go to my y equals and clear that out. I'm going to go back to my stat, and I'm going to edit my stats. All right. So I'm going to go up to L1 and click clear, and then enter. Go up to L2 and click clear, and then enter. All right, so now we're going to move on to the last problem, number 15, and it's going to be negative 15. I have a negative 8, a negative 3, a 0, and 7. And then for my y values, I have 8, 7, 0, 0 again, and negative 3. Okay, so let's see what this looks like. If I click graph, notice it's not all my points are in there. So I'm going to go ahead and click on zoom. Remember we did this before, and it's going to be 9, zoom 9, click enter, and now I can see all my points. Once again, looks like a negative correlation from left to right. Looks like it's going down. But now let's figure out my trend line. So from last time, remember what we did? We made sure that was empty. And I'm going to go to my main screen here. and I'm going to say stat calc linear regression. Then I'm click on vars, right one, click on function, enter, y1, enter. I get this, click enter again, and it automatically gives me my equation. Okay, so write that equation down. If you want to look at it, you can see that's already in the y equals, and I click graph, and it creates my trend line from left to right. Okay, so the answer to number 15, write the equation. It's another decimal number, so it would be y equals negative 0.55x plus 0.31. All right, if we're rounding to 2 decimal places. All right, so that's how you would complete numbers 14 and 15.